In 2009, UNESCO published a report, and that report argues that irrespective of the methods, the universities need to actively reinforce certain skills in students. These skills, some of these skills I listed here. Excellent quality in reading and writing from the side of learners. Problem identification. While going through any learning process, learners should be able to identify the issues or problems in the context, in the learning context. And another thing is problem solving. Every education is to develop the problem solving skill in different aspects where the learner is live. So, social problem solving skill must be developed in the learner through the methods of teaching. Another thing is that ability for effective communication. By undergoing the learning programs at undergraduate level or graduate level or postgraduate level, the ability of the learner for effective communication in various facets must be developed. And another point is that development of the disciplined thinking. The learner must develop a disciplined thinking by undergoing the courses, and also the methodology should develop innovative and reflective thinking and navigate the ethical dilemmas that may experienced by the learner, and the method should develop creativity and initiative from the side of the learner, and it should develop the critical thinking from the learner side. Each country will have its own aims and modus operandi in higher education, but UNESCO saying that these listed skills are necessarily to be developed by the system of higher education. Let me read or let me prompt these skills once again: excellent quality in reading and writing, problem identification, problem solving, the ability for effective communication, disciplined thinking, innovative and reflective thinking, navigate the ethical dilemmas, develop creativity and initiative, and develop critical thinking. So, this must be the focus of any teaching learning method. As I mentioned before, Indian higher education sector is on refurbishment and rejuvenation in its teaching learning process. From the teaching ability centeredness of teachers, now the system is focusing on the learnability of students. Let me repeat it because an important point. Teaching ability centeredness of teachers is shifting to the learnability of students. So, the methods should be adopted according to the capacity or learning ability of the learners. In other words, focus is on learning skills of students and not the teaching skills of teachers. It is interesting to know about the teaching learning practices in Indian higher education sector because it is very wide and vast. Now, we have nearly 30 states and centers with excellent importance, universities, state universities, central universities, colleges, higher education institutions in different pathway, institution of national importance like IITs, IIMs, etc. So, from the state to state we can have differences, from the institution to institution we can see differences, from the university to university there are differences. So, these all are the facets of Indian higher education sector. Going through all these things is little bit interesting. We experience a type of lag in making use the new methods that are embraced all over the world, and we Indian higher education sector missed our own methods also that we used at a time. Of course, there are problems and demerits, but we have certain merits also. Our higher education institutions are focused on content oriented teaching. Content oriented teaching has some good effects. And another point is that we still have prominence to teachers in higher education sector. At some time it may be a disadvantage, but at many of the time this is an advantage too, because the prominent teachers can transact the values and culture through the classroom interaction. No technologies can be replaced with it. Another merit is that we have multiple forms of methods to use in higher education sector. Our colleges, university departments, institutions with national importance, etc., are having different types of methods. So, the higher education sector of country is a depository of different types of methods. And the multiple use of methods is also an advantage. We have wide opportunities for technology, internet, online teaching, blended teaching, InflibNet, teacher oriented teaching, student oriented teaching, and many other fruitful aspects. As we know, India's higher education sector is third largest in the world after US and China. We are largest and having a big place in the variety of methods of teaching and learning too. However, what are the other demerits we can go through? Indian higher education still utilize lecture method as the best method in classrooms. I do not say that lecture method should be avoided, lecture method have certain good effects, but the problem is that all over the country our colleges or institutions or departments of universities, higher education teachers thinking that lecture method is the best one, and what is happening? India higher education still utilize this method as the best method. The teacher centered lecturing is being neglecting the students and they becoming passive learners. This is the major problem of the wide use of lecture method. Even an experiment oriented content being transacted through lecturing in undergraduate levels. No doubt it is a pathetic condition. Indian higher education teachers are less self motivated to use innovative and new methods. This is another problem we are facing. Teachers should be self motivated to grab and make use different types of methods that used all over the world. Instead, we miss our self motivation and focusing on the method that we are practicing. No changes in the teaching strategy. The teachers very rarely undertake a research oriented teaching approach, and the teachers are more interested in making use the mechanical projects and irrelevant teaching strategies that can easily be practiced. Same method of projectors and same method of teaching strategies. Changes are very rare. It is a fact, one may never see a college teaching context in India with undergraduate level research or teaching learning process. In our country, this may happen only in certain institutions with high standard. We are still in an assumption that research oriented teaching and learning is something meant for postgraduate level only. This concept should be changed. Research oriented teaching should be taken to the undergraduate level also. These are the trend. Let us go through some of the trends in teaching learning in Indian higher education. Of course, the demerits let be there, demerits there, but let me think of what are the modern trends. Indian higher education teachers scarcely use the pedagogic varieties. What are the pedagogic varieties? Pedagogy is an area having a lot of research, and some of the major pedagogic varieties like culturally relevant pedagogy or method of mentoring along with teaching, method that develop critical thinking of learners, research incorporated teaching. All these are partialized by we people, and instead of using these diversified methods, we teachers focus on lecturing and lecturing only. I repeat, lecturing is nothing wrong, lecturing is needed, but focus is on lecturing is against the student centered teaching approaches, and that is a trend of present Indian system. Now, we discussed the trend and advantages and disadvantages of methods of teaching in Indian higher education scenario. It is fact that higher education sector of India needs more innovative steps to incorporate effective teaching learning methods. Let us discuss them.